Discover the miraculous covenant. Genesis reveals God's transforming plan for sacred creation. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the Lord's voice pierced the stillness of igniting a flame in the heart of a man named Abram. In a city steeped in the worship of multiple gods, where the scent of incense rose from every temple and idols lined the streets, Abram felt an unsettling yearning within his soul, a desire for the truth of the one true God. Each night, as he gazed at the stars, he sensed a calling that transcended the rituals of his people. It was during this time that God audibly broke into Abram's life with an extraordinary command. Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. Genesis 12:1 ESV. With these profound words, the very fabric of Abram's existence began to unravel in a whirlwind of divine purpose. How could he leave the safety of family, the familiar chants of his kin, and the traditions that had tethered him to Ur? Yet the thrill of the unknown beckoned him toward a destiny woven in mystery, a land promised by a God he was only beginning to understand. As he gathered his household and their few belongings, the weight of God's promise settled upon him. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great. Genesis 12:2 ESV. The heartfelt whispers of doubt echoed in his mind. Could mere words from the heavens hold true? With Sarah by his side and no children to their names, the laughter of townsfolk and the mockery of barren women tugged at his resolve. Each mile toward Canaan resonated with anguished questions, taunting him with uncertainty. What if God's word fails? Canaan, with its lush valleys and towering mountains, was a land teeming with promise, yet fraught with hardship. Here every challenge loomed larger than the vast sky above. Unshaken, Abram built altars and called upon the name of the Lord, desperate for affirmation, desperate to grasp the weight of the promise he had received. As years flowed without the fulfillment of God's covenant, he found refuge in his tent, where the stillness of the night enveloped him. Late one night, God spoke once more, assuring him that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars, yet hope seemed as distant as the heavens. But then came the moment that trembled with divine intent. God demanded the unthinkable. Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering. Genesis 22:2 ESV. This command weighed heavily upon Abram, forcing him into a clash of grief and faith. Could he still trust in the covenant that seemed to rest painfully on the altar of sacrifice? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history.
If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now, let's continue with what the Lord did next. Abram prepared for the journey to Moriah, each step a battle between fear and unwavering faith. As he ascended the mountain with Isaac, the questions gnawed deeper. Would God truly provide? The altar awaited, yet the even greater mystery of God's plan loomed larger than life itself. In that sacred moment, suspended between life and death, Abram's heart was poised for revelation as dawn broke over the horizon, illuminating the path of destiny. In the face of the ultimate test, how would God fulfill his covenant? As they journeyed together, Abram's heart wrestled like a storm-tossed sea. Isaac walked behind him, the wood for the burnt offering clasped tightly in his arms. The youthful curiosity on Isaac's face, mingled with the innocence of the questions he asked, pierced Abram's soul. "Father, where is the lamb for the offering?" Isaac's voice echoed like a haunting melody in the desolate stillness of Moriah. With trembling lips, Abram responded, "God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." Genesis 22:8 ESV. The faith spoken from his mouth felt like a desperate hope, but it was also born of a faith that had weathered the intensity of divine promises for years. He clenched his fists at his sides, holding a burning mixture of love for his son and reverence for his God. Upon reaching the destined place, the altar lay ahead, piled with stones, a grim testament to the sacrifice that awaited. Abram's hands moved, almost mechanically, as he arranged the wood. The air thickened with the weight of his dread. Each action became a prayer, a sacrifice of his own will to the God who had called him forth. As he bound Isaac, the world around them faded. Isaac looked up into his father's eyes, and in that moment a depth of love washed over Abram, a love that felt almost too heavy to bear. "Father, I trust you," Isaac seemed to say without words, finding courage in the strength reflected in Abram's gaze. With trembling hands, Abram lifted the knife, its polished blade glinting in the morning sun, an embodiment of despair and decision. Suspended in sacred time, his heart hammered against the confines of his chest. At this critical juncture, the heavens held their breath. Suddenly, Abram's name thundered from the heavens, divine urgency piercing the air as the voice of the Lord broke through the weighty silence. "Abram! Abram!" The call was unmistakably clear, each syllable resonating with authority. In that moment, time itself seemed to stand still. "Here I am," Abram replied, voice choked with a mix of dread and relief. "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Genesis 22:12 ESV. The words of God released a torrent of emotion within Abram, relief cascading as he blinked back tears, guilt and joy intertwining into a sacred dance. Turning, Abram's heart quickened as he beheld a ram caught in the thicket by its horns, a lamb provided by the very hand of God. "The Lord will provide," he whispered, reverently acknowledging the unfolding of God's promise amidst unimaginable trial. He took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering instead of his son. As the smoke rose from the altar, a new understanding enveloped Abram's spirit, the essence of sacrifice and provision woven together in the tapestry of divine love. In that sacred place, the Lord spoke once more, reaffirming his covenant. "I will surely bless you, and I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven and as the sand that is on the seashore." Genesis 22:17 ESV. Yet, as dawn lighted the sky, a profound mystery began to unfurl. What future awaited descendants forged in such trials? How would sovereign grace flow from this moment of unfathomable sacrifice? In the reverberation of that sacred exchange, another promise lingered in the silence, beckoning further into the depths of God's unending plan, an echo that would reverberate through generations. When the time had come for God's ultimate purpose to be revealed, what divine wonders awaited the world? And so, with the offering made, the air was thick with the fragrance of sacrifice, a testament to the unfathomable obedience of Abram. The great and mighty hand of God rested upon him, filling the valley with a palpable sense of his presence. Abram stood, heart still heavy, yet lightened by the assurance of divine provision. The voice of the Lord resonated in his ears, a promise he had clung to amidst uncertainty. The covenant deepened in his understanding as he marveled at God's mercy, and he called the place, "The Lord will provide," forever marking it as the ground where faith met divine favor. Genesis 22:14 ESV. As Abram and Isaac descended the mountain, a solemn yet victorious air surrounded them. The boy's youthful innocence remained untarnished, and his trust in his father echoed a deeper lesson of faith. Each step was intertwined with a newfound understanding of God's character and purpose. Heaven rejoiced, for in that moment a bridge was forged between the heart of man and the heart of God. Yet, as they reached the base of the mountain, Abram felt a stirring within him. Could there be more entwined in the promise offered? He recalled the solemn words spoken by the Lord before. "In your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed." Genesis 22:18 ESV. Oh, how the weight of such a proclamation settled upon his soul.
News came swiftly of the miracle. A voice echoed among his servants that he and Sarah would conceive a child, a promise long awaited. Fortunate was he who had witnessed the renewal of divine clarity in a world often shrouded in doubt. As they returned to the encampment, whispers of God's wonder seemed to fill the air, weaving tales of hope and expectation among those who walked with him. As night fell upon the desert, the stars above twinkled like promises illuminating the dark sky. Abram lifted his gaze, and in the shimmering expanse he saw not merely celestial bodies, but the embodiment of what God had sworn. "I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven." Each star represented sons and daughters yet to be born, generations waiting to walk in covenant with the Almighty. The heart of Abram swelled with an indescribable joy, and he interceded for those children still to come. His spirit rejoiced in the thought of future tribes to emerge from his lineage. Yet a shadow lingered. What trials would they face? What challenges beset the shores of their covenant? His mind wandered to the years ahead, filled with uncertainties, as he pondered the very fabric of his descendants' destinies. Then, in the stillness of the night, a voice broke the silence once more. "Abram, the journey continues. Prepare yourself, for the path will not be free of trials. There are nations to be birthed, promises to fulfill, and a legacy of faith that shall echo through the ages." How magnificent and mysterious God's plan was! And Abram, with sinews of faith firm and strong, bowed low before the God who sees. For within this sacred dialogue, the fabric of time was being woven. As the dawn approached, an unseen thread stretched forth, revealing hints of a greater promise entwined within his lineage, one that would one day shift the very foundation of humanity. The seed of a nation was being planted, yet another wisdom lingered just beyond his grasp, waiting to be unveiled in God's sovereign timing. As the first light of dawn painted the horizon with hues of gold and purple, Abram rose with a heart both anxious and expectant. His thoughts turned to Sarah, his beloved wife, who had walked with him through barren years, burdened by the weight of unanswered prayers. And now a single promise echoed in the solitude of his soul. They would have a son, a miracle born from the ashes of hope long dormant. With fervent steps he approached their tent, its fabric softly fluttering in the morning breeze. As he entered, he found Sarah still wrapped in the embrace of sleep, her brow serene yet marked by years of longing. He knelt beside her, awe washing over him as he considered the depths of God's faithfulness. Would the child they beheld one day carry the mantle of covenant? Would he know the stories of their lineage and the promises made under heaven's watchful gaze? As the sun beamed through the tent, illuminating Sarah's face, she stirred and opened her eyes. The warmth of joy ignited in her countenance upon seeing Abram. "Did the night bring forth divine wisdom?" she asked, her words a gentle reminder of their shared journey. "Aye, dear Sarah," Abram replied, his voice a mix of reverence and excitement. "The Lord has spoken. He assures us of a child, a son who shall carry forth our name and his promises." With disbelief laced through her heart, Sarah laughed softly, yet the sound was a mixture of incredulity and warmth.
Can it be? At such an age? I who am old, and you who are beyond our years? Genesis 18:12 ESV. A child born of the impossible, just as our God delights in revealing his strength through our weakness, Abram answered, lifting his hands as if to grasp the heavens. He has shown us that the faithful will not be forsaken. Our laughter shall be transformed into joy. And there, in their humble dwelling, the Spirit of the Lord descended, enveloping the couple in divine peace. The promise lay before them like a new dawn. Hope breathed life into weary bones. Yet, as they shared in the sacred moment of anticipation, the enemy prowled just outside their joy, seeking to sow seeds of doubt. The nations that would arise from their offspring would not come without opposition. Thus, Abram sought the Lord in prayer, imploring divine protection over the child yet to be conceived. In the stillness of that sacred hour, God revealed another fragment of the covenant. Abram, he spoke, his voice like thunder among the clouds. Know this, the child of promise will be a vessel of blessing, and through him you shall bear a nation. But be forewarned, he shall be a stranger in a land not his own, and there his descendants will be tested. Genesis 15:13 ESV. With each word, the depths of God's plan unfolded, stirring both apprehension and resolve in Abram's heart. Would the trials of his offspring lead them forth into the arms of faith, or would they falter amidst challenges unforeseen? As the sun rose higher, casting shadows away, Abram pondered the journey ahead. His spirit was emboldened, yet uncertainty flickered in the corners of his mind. God's sovereign timing was a tapestry woven with threads of grace and tribulation. And so, as the knowledge of what was to come began to settle into his spirit, he wondered, what of the covenant that lay ahead? Would it truly encompass all nations, weaving them into the fabric of salvation? For amidst the glorious promise of a son and the divine announcements made in tenderness, a deeper mystery loomed. The full comprehension of God's sovereign plan was yet to be unveiled, with wonders still cascading from the heavenly throne, waiting to be revealed in time. As the day waxed warm, Abram felt a stirring within him, a divine urgency propelling him forth. He ventured outside, seeking the vastness of creation, the heavens bearing witness to God's unbreakable promise. The sun cast its golden light upon the fields, each blade of grass seeming to bless the Lord with its vibrant hue. Abram stood at the edge of the camp, looking up into the expanse of the sky. "O Lord," he murmured, "you who know the stars by name, how shall I understand the fullness of your covenant? How can it be that you would choose our line for such honor?" In that moment, a voice like a gentle whirl of wind came to him, tender yet authoritative. "Abram, look towards heaven and count the stars, if you are able to number them. So shall your offspring be." Genesis 15:5 ESV. Awestruck, Abram turned his gaze upward. The night sky unfurled the glory of God before him, a multitude of stars sparkling like promises waiting to be fulfilled. In his heart, faith ignited anew, for he believed the words spoken to him. And he believed the Lord, and he counted it to him as righteousness. Genesis 15:6 ESV. Yet, even as enthusiasm surged within, doubt lingered at the fringes. "But how, Lord? Sarah and I are old, well beyond the years of childbearing." A heaviness shadowed his faith, as the long years of waiting pressed upon him like a weight. God spoke again, his voice steeped in compassion yet unyielding. "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Genesis 18:14 ESV. There was a promise etched deeper, a destiny crafted amidst the threads of impossibility, intertwining divine purpose with human frailty. As dusk approached, Abram returned to Sarah, who had begun to prepare their evening meal. He watched her from a distance, her hands deftly working, yet weariness marked her features. A longing swept over him. How he wished for the trials of the past to fade, for the joy of their promised son to fill their home. "Sarah," he began, and she turned with a smile that lit the shadows. "The Lord has assured us of His promise. We shall bear a son, a miracle to rise from our barren ground." Yet, as he spoke, her brow furrowed slightly, doubt flickering in her eyes. "Can it truly be so, Abram? Am I to believe that the Almighty would still expect our lives to bear fruit?" "Indeed, it is so," he replied, longing for her faith to join his. "Shall we not trust in the one who made the heavens and the earth? His plans transcend our understanding. Our laughter shall echo through the generations." With those words, Sarah hesitated, the tension of hope and skepticism mingling in her heart. She smiled again, though it was shadowed by uncertainty. "May it be as you say, my beloved." Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, the promise loomed larger in their hearts. That night, as silence fell heavy upon their tent, the Lord spoke again to Abram in a dream. "Know for certain that your offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and will be servants there, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. Genesis 15:13 ESV. The weight of this new revelation struck Abram profoundly, for it unveiled not only blessing, but also future trials.
Deep was the mystery of God's sovereign design. Would the faith of His descendants withstand the storms yet to come? Would they emerge as a blessing to all nations, as the promise foretold? In the quietude, Abram resolved to stand firm, praying for strength and endurance. The flickering lamp before him burned steady, a symbol of the unwavering light of divine promise. The full extent of God's sovereign plan remained hidden still, shrouded in grace and testing, each day drawing nearer to fulfillment. Yet its realization awaited the faithful heart of a nation, an unfolding story that would weave through the tapestry of time. And so the world waited, poised on the brink of revelation, as divine purpose prepared to break forth from the womb of the impossible. As the dawn of a new day broke over the land, casting its vibrant hues upon the earth, the heart of Abram remained steadfast, gripped by both hope and an ever-deepening understanding of his God. In the quiet of the morning, he rose early, compelled to seek the Lord. He wandered to the meadow, where the dew glistened like jewels, each droplet reflecting the promise of the Almighty. "O Lord," Abram called out, "your words sustain me, but the waiting weighs heavy. I seek certainty in this covenant that you have spoken. Will you reveal more of your purpose to me?" In that moment, the Lord appeared to him as a cloud enveloping the sun, filling the air with divine presence. "Abram, I have chosen you for a great purpose. Even now, nations are being shaped by your faithfulness. Your descendants shall indeed fill the earth, and through them all families of the earth shall be blessed." Genesis 12:3 ESV. Abram felt a thrill of reverence wash over him, as if the very heavens were descending to meet him. "But how shall it come to pass?" he implored. "The years weigh upon us, and every season seems to mock the promise that you have given." The Lord, in His glory, beckoned Abram to lift his eyes once more towards the horizon. "Consider the land that I have given you, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates." Genesis 15:18 ESV. As he spoke, visions of vast fields, flowing rivers, and prosperous valleys filled Abram's mind. Visions of an inheritance yet to be claimed, an arc of destiny stretching beyond his sight. As the sun climbed higher, a heavy mist of silence enveloped Abram, and he sensed the weight of an unspoken truth, a reckoning that his journey was not merely personal, but entwined with the history of the world. He knelt, overwhelmed by the enormity of this calling. "O God, let your will be done. Grant me the strength to endure what is yet to come, for my heart trusts in you." Yet, deep within, the sobering truth began to settle. The path ahead would be fraught with trials. That very night, as darkness fell upon the camp, God spoke again. "Know that your descendants will face trials, and they will be vulnerable in a strange land.
But fear not, for I shall deliver them, and they shall return to possess what is theirs." Genesis 15:14 ESV. The Lord's promise cracked the night air, a promise of deliverance woven through suffering. Abram's spirit wrestled within, understanding that redemption often emerged through the valleys of despair. Each revelation turned like a key within him, unlocking deeper faith for what lay ahead. Could the joy of a promised son spring forth from the trials ahead? Could the seeds of Abraham's lineage thrive even in the soil of hardship? Abram lingered in prayer as the moon cast its silver light over the earth. He thought of Sarah, knowing she bore her own burdens of uncertainty. With a heart full of love and resolve, he returned to her. "Beloved, I receive the Lord's assurance. His promises are unshakable. Prepare your heart, for His plans for us extend beyond our understanding." Sarah gazed at him, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes, though the shadows of doubt still loomed. Can we not trust in the one who calls us by name? Is it not He who has made the heavens and knows our hearts? And thus they stood, embraced in the divine tension of faith and mystery, a testament to God's promise unfolding. Their journey, though wrapped in uncertainty, had a divine trajectory that would stretch across generations and nations. As the promise lingered on the horizon of their lives, the world remained poised, awaiting the manifestation of God's great and unfolding plan, a narrative that would carry both blessing and burden, drawing them all nearer to the fullness of His glory. And yet, the question hung in the air. What measure of suffering must come before the dawn of this great covenant? As the days turned into weeks, Abram's heart grew heavy under the weight of anticipation. The promise lingered in his soul like the scent of ripe fruit just beyond reach. In the depths of his spirit, he sought the Lord, praying with fervor, "O God, how long must my heart wait for the fulfillment of your word? Will I truly be a father of nations, or will my faith falter before the twilight of my days?" One evening, as the horizon blushed with the colors of dusk, a voice broke through the stillness of Abram's thoughts. "Abram," it called, a whisper yet resounding across the expanse of the sky. "My covenant with you is steadfast. It shall not fail." The presence of the Lord enveloped him, tangible and strong, surging through every fiber of his being. "Lord," Abram replied, his voice a mixture of awe and desperation, "what can I offer you? For I remain childless, and my heir is but a servant of my household." The Lord led him outside, beyond the confines of his dwelling, and directed his gaze toward the myriad stars twinkling above. "Look now toward heaven, and count the stars if you are able to number them. So shall your descendants be." Genesis 15:5 ESV. Abram felt the weight of eternity in those words. He marveled at the vastness of the night sky, the infinite expanse of creation, whispering promises meant to echo through generations. As he stood in the cool night air, his doubts drifted away like the clouds, and in faith he believed the Lord. "Even so, Lord," Abram murmured, "how shall this come to pass when my years press upon me, and the promise of a son seems but a distant dream?" "Your faith shall be counted as righteousness," the Lord spoke, and in his proclamation, Abram discovered a glimpse of divine validation, a flicker of hope amidst despair. It was a sacred moment, for even within the labyrinth of uncertainty, his heart began to align with the divine purpose that would be revealed. Yet, as the dawn approached, a new burden loomed over Abram and Sarah. They questioned the barriers of flesh and time, navigating the chasm of promise between their present and what was sealed in heaven. Evening fell again, and together they prayed for the strength to endure, searching for answers in the silence. Days turned to months, and Sarah, her heart mixed with yearning and doubt, sought a way to fulfill the divine promise within human understanding. She approached Abram with a heavy heart. "Perhaps, dear husband, it is time to consider my maidservant Hagar. May she bear your child, and the promise may still unfold." "A plan born from our impatience?" Abram cautioned, though doubt crept into his voice. Yet he laid his trust upon Sarah, and driven by a desire to fulfill the covenant, he complied. The union occurred under the weight of hopeful whispers, but it bore fruits both expected and unexpected, the child who would be named Ishmael. Once more the stillness of the night was broken. Alone beneath the stars, God spoke again. "Abram, even in this I shall establish my covenant, but the true heir to your promise shall come from Sarah, yet trials shall precede the blessings." Abram knew now that every strand of this narrative was woven into a larger tapestry, one that would link the hearts of many to the promises of the Most High. Even as shadows of doubt lingered in their hearts, God's sovereignty remained unfaltering. The Lord concluded with a solemn reminder. "You shall bear the name Abraham, father of a multitude, and through you my plans shall be revealed to the nations." With that revelation hung a significant challenge: how to navigate the hardness of their present reality while keeping their eyes fixed upon the dawn that awaited them. In their hearts, uncertainty ebbed like the waves on the shore, yet from the shores of their faith, a miraculous covenant was set in motion, igniting a divine twist to the tale of creation itself. And so the quest for understanding began anew. What new heights of faith would they ascend to embrace the unfolding of God's sovereign plan? And it came to pass that when Abram had embraced the divine word, he awoke to the dawning reality that would shape the course of history. Time continued its march, and the seasons passed over the land, yet the promise still echoed within his spirit as a silent hymn of hope. With each rising sun, doubt crept back into the hearts of both Abram and Sarah. One night, while the moon shone brightly, Sarah entered into her tent with a troubled spirit. "Abram," she called softly, "the years have fled as shadows, and still the promise does not come. I have seen the laughter of mothers with their children. It pierces my soul. What shall we do, for my heart is weary?" In his weariness, Abram took her hand and said, "My beloved, can it be that we were meant to wait? Yet let us not forget the assurance the Lord spoke unto us, for the stars still twinkle as reminders of his oath." Resolute in her thoughts, Sarah contemplated. "If the Lord speaks of nations and descendants, perhaps I must trust not only in the promise, but in the timing of the Lord." Yet behind her steadfast facade, shadows of doubt still flickered, like leaves swaying in a breeze. And as they took their rest that evening, the Lord's presence enveloped their dwelling once more, a cloud of divine clarity. The voice of God spoke softly yet profoundly. "Abram, I shall visit you again this time next year, and you shall have a son through Sarah.
Abram felt the weight of that declaration as though it were carved into his very bones. An overwhelming awe attached itself to him, but soon his mortal mind questioned, "How shall such a thing be? For I am old, and Sarah is past the age of childbearing." "O Abram," the Lord responded, "is anything too hard for the Lord?" The words echoed through the stillness, igniting his heart anew with faith. But in the tent, Sarah overheard and found herself laughing, unable to contain the mingled emotions of disbelief and yearning. "After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure?" she mused, enveloped in the shroud of her doubt. "Why does Sarah laugh?" the Lord asked, knowing well what lay hidden in her heart. "Is there anything impossible for me? I shall fulfill my promise." Caught in her moment of disbelief, Sarah stepped forth, her face pale as she replied, "I did not laugh." But the Lord was undeterred, for he understood the struggles and frailties of his chosen. "Abram," the Lord declared, "your name shall no longer be Abram. It shall now be Abraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. And your wife, Sarah, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant." Abram fell upon his face, grateful for the reassurance, and yet trembling with the magnitude of this divine decree. In this holy encounter, he recognized the depth of God's mercy and the strength of his plan. In the weeks that followed, as the assurance of God blossomed within, Abram shared with his household the visions and promises that fueled his faith. With renewed fervor, he turned his heart toward the heavens and filled the air with prayers of gratitude. Yet, unknown to them, trials awaited just beyond the horizon. For the path toward fulfillment was lined with both promise and testing, interwoven with the threads of humanity's struggle. Even as the season turned and the world moved forward, the covenant was not yet fully realized, and the hearts of Abraham and Sarah would face the fires of challenge. There lay a profound truth behind every trial, for in the tapestry of God's design, each moment would reveal his sovereign plan with greater clarity. And so the question lingered in the air. What did the future hold for Abraham and Sarah, and how would the divine narrative unfold through their obedience, sealing the promise of nations yet to come? And it came to pass that as the seasons turned, the whispers of doubt in Sarah's heart grew faint under the powerful light of God's promise. With every day that dawned, she was reminded of the covenant spoken by the Almighty, the God who called her and Abraham out from the shadows of their past into the brilliance of his purpose. Then, one day, as the sun reached its zenith, Abraham sat quietly under the shade of the great trees of Mamre. He lifted his eyes and beheld 3 men approaching. With a heart that throbbed in reverence, Abraham hurried to greet them, bowing low before the earth. "My Lord," he begged, "if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Please let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest under the tree." They agreed, and Abraham ran to the tent, calling to Sarah, "Quickly, prepare 3 measures of fine flour, knead it and make cakes." He selected a tender calf from his herd, and quickly had it dressed, setting before them a feast fit for royalty. As they ate, the air was heavy with sacred expectation. And they asked him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" "In the tent," he replied, his heart stirred with both fear and anticipation. Then one of them declared, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son." The echo of the promise filled the space around them, and Sarah, listening from the tent, could not escape the weight of it. She laughed to herself, saying, "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure?" But her laughter did not go unnoticed, for the Lord heard her doubt, piercing the veil of her heart.
"Why did Sarah laugh?" the Lord inquired. "Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you, and Sarah shall have a son." In that moment, the gravity of the encounter hung heavy. Conviction washed over Sarah as fear entwined with recognition. Stepping forth, she denied her laughter, yet in her confession the truth lay bare. "I did not laugh," she said, trembling in the realization of her own disbelief. "Indeed, you did laugh," the Lord affirmed, gently, yet firmly, for he knew her struggle.
It was a moment marked by divine grace, a chance for Sarah's faith to blossom amid her fears. Days passed, and in the intimacy of their shared experience, the weight of the promise began to settle into the hearts of both Abraham and Sarah. Their spirits rekindled with the realization that the God who had called them would not forsake them, binding His word to the life coursing through their veins. Yet unbeknownst to them, the looming cloud of history approached, fraught with trials that would test their resolve and affirm their faith. As they stood at the threshold of the promise, they could not see that the divine plan unfolded not merely for their lineage, but for the redemption of nations, a lineage woven through the fabric of time itself. And thus the question echoed once more: would they stand firm in faith, trusting in a promise that seemed improbable? Beyond the horizon, the Lord's sovereign plan awaited, hidden yet pulsating with assurance, revealing a deeper truth yet to come. As the appointed time drew near, a hush fell over the land, pregnant with expectation. The air was thick with divine promise, lingering in the hearts of Abram and Sarah, now Abraham and Sarah, marked by their new identities and the faith they had cultivated through years of waiting. The sun cast its golden rays across the plains of Mamre, illuminating the blessings yet to unfold. In the quiet moments, Sarah began to cradle her swelling belly, joy mingling with wonder. With each passing day, the laughter that once danced mockingly upon her lips transformed into a melody of anticipation. "O Lord," she whispered in prayer, "you have turned my sorrow into joy. My heart rejoices in the promise that you have bestowed." Then the day arrived, a day inscribed in the heavenly record. In the cool of the morning, as dawn's light kissed the earth, the cries of a newborn pierced the stillness. Sarah held her son, Isaac, close to her heart, tears of joy cascading down her cheeks. "God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me." Genesis 21 verses 6 ESV. And in that sacred moment, the world rejoiced alongside Sarah, for the miracle was not just of a child, but of faith made manifest, a testimony to God's unyielding covenant. Abraham, too, marveled at the wonder of grace as he gazed upon the face of Isaac. "Truly, God has provided," he murmured, echoing the faith he had carried through trials long past. Yet, even in this joy, the journey was not without its challenges. As Isaac grew, so did the tension between the households of Abraham. Hagar, the mother of Ishmael, cast glances filled with bitterness toward Sarah, whose heart ran wild with fear and uncertainty. One fateful day, the tensions erupted, and Abraham found himself torn, broadening the scope of God's promise to encompass not just one son, but two lines intertwined by their father's heart. "Cast out the slave woman and her son, for the son of the slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac." Genesis 21:10 ESV. Abraham's heart ached, for he loved Ishmael, yet divine purpose had spoken. In the stillness that followed, God reaffirmed His plan, assuring Abraham that both lines would bear witness to His glory, yet the covenant remained with Isaac. "Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for through Isaac shall your offspring be named." Genesis 21:12 ESV. With heavy heart, Abraham obeyed. He sent Hagar and Ishmael away, entrusting them to God's care. Even as they wandered in the wilderness, the Lord saw their plight and provided for them. An angel called out to Hagar, "Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is." Genesis 21:17 ESV, unveiling the depth of God's mercy even amid hardship. Years passed, and the bond between Isaac and Abraham grew, a sweet reflection of the divine promise blooming anew. Abraham's faith deepened through trials, each moment a reminder that God's covenant was being fulfilled in the hearts of his lineage, echoing the alignment of heaven's purpose with the ambitions of earthly life. Yet a greater test awaited Abraham, one that would reveal the unshakable foundation of his faith. When God called out once more, "Abraham," the ground beneath him trembled. "Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and offer him as a burnt offering." Genesis 22:2 ESV. The command struck like thunder, reverberating through Abraham's very being. Despite the shadows of doubt that flickered at the edges of his soul, he rose with unwavering resolve. "God will provide," he whispered under his breath, a mantra bred from his deep relationship with the Almighty. And thus he set forth with Isaac, the promise embodied, climbing the steep ascent of Moriah, believing that God could even raise the dead. The altar was built, the wood laid, and as he lifted his knife with trembling hands, the very heavens intervened. "Abraham! Abraham!" The voice resounded, a divine interruption filled with purpose. In that moment, his soul rejoiced in the faithfulness of God, for a ram was provided, caught in the thickets. God had indeed made provision. And the blessings poured forth, as the Lord reaffirmed his magnificent covenant once again. "By myself I have sworn," declares the Lord, "because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you." Genesis 22:16-17 ESV. Faith soared in the hearts of Abraham and Sarah, the heavenly narrative woven through the lives of those who believed. Generations to come would blossom from their lineage, bringing forth nations and a Redeemer, for the promise extended far beyond their lives. As the story of Abraham and Sarah concluded, the echoes of their faith resounded through time. In land and lineage, through trial and triumph, they stood firm as pillars of unwavering belief in the God who fulfills his promises. Brothers and sisters, as you reflect on this sacred story, may your hearts be drawn deeper into the fabric of God's glorious plan. Remember, each promise made is a seed of hope, as your faith flourishes through the trials of life. Subscribe immediately to stay connected to God's Word and not miss the next powerful biblical stories. Leave a like now to help spread God's Word through the algorithm. Comment your spiritual reflections and how this biblical story impacted your faith. Share instantly this message with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. True believers understand the importance of supporting biblical content to reach more souls for Christ.